but that charge on Brunson, I thought they were going to overturn it for some reason.
Yeah, it's good.
Which I thought was like going to be a makeup call. But let's start the fucking pod, Pete.
All right.
That's not an angry you. That's not angry you. Are we going to keep the Rams up thing going?
All right.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Joining me today, a late surprise. Did not expect to be talking to this man in this manner at this moment. So I was kind of thinking I'll be doing it solo. But how could we do this? And now I realize what he's talking about with the YouTube video and the wrong background. There we go. I thought I was going to be doing this solo. And guess what? Not, because Alec Argento is here to talk about the Knicks, and I don't think he's very happy. But Alec, before we get into that, did you get new glasses?
I did get new glasses. Thank you for noticing. You're only the second person to notice in a month and a half.
Nice. They look great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Tortoise rim. No big deal. It's fashionable.
Who's to say? Anyways, how are we feeling about the Knicks? Feeling much better about your look right now than the Knicks, I assume. I'm
fired up, man. I'm not happy whatsoever. This was an emergency podcast for a reason. I got a lot of takes, and I am on the fire Tibbs game right now for the first time in Tibbs' tenure. I've been a big Tibbs defender, but like this game was unforgivable.
So if there's anyone out there listening who's unaware, the Knicks played what I would say a decent game for most of the game. You know, they competed well. They definitely weren't playing great, like by any means. They weren't playing great, but they were playing decent. They had their chances at their leads, and they were up when they could, but they were mostly back and forth. Then they lost in overtime against the Lakers. Terrible possession down the stretch in fourth quarter by Julius Randle. A couple defensive laps by Julius Randle as well. I don't want to blame it all on him because he obviously wasn't great in this game. But Barrett got basically benched in the fourth quarter. Quickly and Brunson played pretty well. Outside of that, you know, Grimes played all right as well, but he didn't shoot well again, which has been a little bit of a trend here we'll discuss. Outside of that, just didn't feel great tonight from the continuity standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, even with a couple good individual performances. And it's just more of the same here with the Knicks kind of fighting mediocrity and winning and losing at the same time, because they're winning some good games, they're losing some bad games, and kind of everything in between. So it's a hard thing to kind of grasp right now who they are, what they're supposed to be. And when I saw your text, Alec, and I was thinking to myself, I'm going to go on there solo. I'll talk a little Knicks. I'll talk a little this, a little that. And you came out with your take that you are not happy with Tibbs right now. And I wanted to expand on that, which I'm happy that you're here. So what about this game specifically? And then we can go more generally over the past couple weeks and months. But what about this game specifically frustrated you with Coach Thibodeau?
Well, there was a ton in this game. I mean, the biggest thing, and I know you said you want to talk about it in the larger spectrum, but like you can't lose another home game on national television. Every time that they're home, they are going to lose this game at this point. They get into another dogfight, and you know that they're going to lose that game. It's embarrassing. You can't come out of that that last play timeout and have no play besides Randle ISO. And then Randle ISO into a double team and he doesn't even get the shot off. That's unforgivable. You can't do that, especially when Randle was like 6 for 19 or something like that, which is ridiculous. He was playing like ass the entire game, which is fine. He can have a game where he's off. Like that's fine. He's been playing out of his mind for the past 3 months or pretty much the entire season at this point. Totally fine. But you have to give it to Brunson, who is like 50% from the field the entire night, was hitting all of his free throws. You're in the bonus. Go attack the rim. Worst case scenario, you don't get anything, but you have to get a shot off. You have to get a shot off at some point. You have to try to draw the foul. You have to give it to the guy that's been good all game. Or he kicks it out to Quickly or Grimes. And, you know, I know Grimes didn't have a great game and hasn't been playing super well the past couple of games, but he's shown you that he could hit big shots. Even RJ could have been in the game to come out of that timeout, which again, he was inexplicably gone the entire quarter. And I know that he wasn't playing well, but like you need to have your guys in there too. And I get keeping Quickly in there, but you need to have RJ in there instead of either Quickly or Grimes, in my opinion. But I understand that. You can't have Randle make that play at all. Or there's that, and this isn't necessarily on Tibbs, but like probably is to a degree, when they had the 4 possession, the 4 offensive rebounds and they're taking threes, they shot 20% from 3 the entire game. they're in the bonus. They're in the bonus. Go run to the rim and see what happens, right? Try to push the pressure on him. Brunson in the beginning fouls like crazy the entire game. It makes no sense to do that. And then that possession ended by Brunson taking the timeout to 5 seconds at half court, which is ridiculous. And then in overtime, you have Hartenstein taking a three. Why the hell is Hartenstein taking a three in the entire game? He's ass at threes. I like, he's not the guy that they promised us he would be this going into the season on like the Knicks subreddit and everything like that, like the advanced analytics darling. It's just it's fucking outrageous, dude. I'm sick of watching these at-home losses against like a team that's ass. The Lakers are ass. They're not a good team.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely way better when LeBron and AD are both healthy, right? They're a much more competent team. They can actually do some things offensively when they're both healthy. However, the Knicks are a better team still than them. They've been playing better. Like, you want to give them credit. Excuse me. You want to give them credit where it's due, right? Like, they are playing better basketball. However, the Knicks are still a better team and have been playing better for the majority of this season. So there's not really an excuse, right? Like, yes, you can lose to the Lakers and not be embarrassed, but in the manner in which they lost is embarrassing, where there was moments where you're watching your all-star and your, franchise cornerstone and Julius Randle. I mean, not a lot of people would want to label him that just because of, what happened last year and whatever, but there were just moments where he looked like his effort wasn't there. And that's the thing that frustrates Knicks fans more than anything. And you don't really see that from other guys on the team. And that's one of the more frustrating things. Like, you're talking about Hartenstein and like him shooting threes when he probably shouldn't be. You know what? I'm fine with that. The guy can shoot a little bit. If he's kind of open, I'm going to live with him letting it rip.
Not in that moment. Not in that moment.
That's fine. But my point is, like, he's making aggressive mistakes, whereas Julius Randle made passive mistakes in that game. And it was really, really frustrating to watch. Like, LeBron goes slowly over a screen on the left wing, and Julius Randle kind of lumbers around the screen, and LeBron gets a wide open jumper. Then the first possession in overtime, LeBron goes down below the hoop and just completely pins down Randle under the hoop, and an easy entry pass gets LeBron a wide open layup. Like, that's the stuff that's unacceptable to Knicks fans.
And the traveling call too.
The traveling, yeah, that same concept too. It's like, if you're just a little more locked in, you're not trying to play hero ball. Like, here's the thing too. He tries to play hero ball without giving hero effort all the time. Like, at least, what's a perfect example here too, Alec, with Russell Westbrook being on the other side of this game. Like, that dude makes mistakes all the time. He makes bad decisions all the time. But if he's on your team, like if you're a Lakers fan, you're a Thunder fan, you're a Rockets, Wizards fan, whatever, he's been on a bunch of teams lately. If you're a fan of one of his teams, you know that he's going all out and his mistakes are just mistakes. He doesn't make, like, I'm not trying hard enough mistakes. And that was some of the stuff that we saw from Randle tonight, which is why Knicks fans are still having some trust issues in this relationship.
I'm not going to allow the Randle slander, like from my perspective. I don't think this was on him. I really don't think it. I think Tibbs has to show that he knows how to draw up a play in the timeout. He's never done it.
Very fair.
Also, I have seen Julius Randle take game-winning shots for 3 years, 4 years now, however long he's been on the team. He's never made one. I've never seen him make one. He might have made one. He's never made one.
He makes a jump shot too. He actually he tried to go to the rim and maybe draw a foul, but then he didn't even shoot. Like, it looked like, at the end of like the second quarter or first quarter, when someone wants to take a half court shot, but they wait for the buzzer to hit so they don't mess up their. That's what it.
And also,
like.
How about like Dennis Schroeder just casually making that three at halftime? Like, there was a bunch of little things that you could just tell throughout this game, no matter how close the Knicks got, they weren't winning this game. And that just that feeds into coaching to a certain degree, right? Like, at a certain point, you have to blame someone who's not getting the team to rally around it. Part of it too, I will fully admit, like, obviously not having Mitch on this team is a huge, huge hole. But I'd rather have Sims in that game than Hartenstein, who can't rebound at all. He, I know he has a little bit of a floater game and a hook shot and everything like that, but Sims is leaps and bounds the better defender and rebounder. So why is he not in that game? I understand he had foul trouble, but you're in overtime, right? You're in overtime. If you keep him in there until the rails go off and then you put Hartenstein in, I'd rather worry about it when that happens than, and have my guy in there when I need it. So Mitch coming back will fix a huge gaping hole that we have in this team. But at the same time, like, Sims is getting better and better each game. Like he's fitting into the starting lineup better and better. He's getting more comfortable. He's growing as a player. He'll never be, a cat or anything like that, but he's a Mitch Light, which is what you need. And when the Knicks were most successful, they had a Mitch Light in Nerlens Noel on the bench, right? And like you don't have to divide up the talent and skill set of your centers. If you have two guys that do the same thing, put the two guys that do the same thing as long as that thing is good, right? And I think that Tibbs is worried about that. He wants to like mix and like that's the only thing that he tries to mix and matches is centers, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, he did technically mix and match quickly in RJ tonight too. Here's the thing. Here's where I'll defend Thibodeau, and this is not really a hearted defense. This is just me being that guy who plays devil's advocate and whatnot. But so many times, yeah, right. If anyone's listened before, they're like, I feel like you do this angle every once in a while. But basically, like for years now of the Thibodeau era here in New York, we have been complaining about him being too tight with his rotations and not loosening up and not allowing young guys to flourish and not really going with the hand he feels is hot. And tonight, here he goes. The hand that's hot is Emmanuel Quickly, who's been hot for a while now. And then we have Hartenstein, who, let's be honest, he played decent tonight. He played pretty well. I mean, he had a 16 points on 10 shots. He was 7 of 10. He had 13 boards. I thought he was effective while out there generally. However, you are correct. Sims is the better defender and should be in to guard Anthony Davis in that spot too. Because AD, I mean, even when he's kind of limited from an athletic standpoint, he has the touch to make some of these shots. He has the ability to still get buckets, and he got some late. So I don't know. I didn't have the same reaction as you about Tibbs in this game, basically, is my point here. My reaction about Tibbs is I haven't thought he was the guy all year, like, or last year for that matter, right? Like, I know the first year was great. He kind of hit expectations. I feel like he's done his job and it's time to pass the baton. We've learned who has what from Tom Thibodeau. We have. And that was from day one, my big goal with Coach Tibbs. Like, I wanted to learn what we have. I wanted our guys to have a culture, to play really hard, to play defense. And for the most part, these guys do. For the most part, we figured out who can play in big moments. Now, it doesn't seem we have the guy to push the right buttons to help push those guys over any sort of top.
I'm with you. I think when we first knew Tibbs was signed, I think you and I came on the pod and said exactly that. Like he's a stepping stone guy who creates a foundation, creates a culture, and gets us there. I don't think it's fair to say like he's done doing what he's done because everybody that he's had that we've drafted, he's developed really well. Not even just that we've drafted. I mean, look at Julius Randle under him, right? Like everyone under him has done well. Quentin Grimes is a legitimate NBA starter who has a really high ceiling. Quickly's really good. I mean, Toppin's a different story just because of his situation with Randle, but Randle was like a mediocre player going into Tibbs having him on there. I mean, we want him off the team. There's the reason we drafted Toppin in the first place. Mitch, Sims, all of that. And I know he doesn't always play the young guys, but he's playing them now because he developed them behind the scenes. And like, that's important because as a Knicks fan, we have never had that. We've never had player development ever. And you got to give him credit for that. And I mean, we are a playoff team, most likely at the moment. And, with enough draft capital to probably make a move at the deadline and make it go forward. But I don't think that he's never been the guy, right? Like, I think he was the guy that we needed for a long time. And now it's starting to show its colors, right? And I think that's a big distinction right there. I don't want to like take away from like, dude was legitimately coach of the year. He's, we're playing better this year than we played that year. And we had a bad year last year, but growth isn't linear. It's not just like get better every season. It's like, peaks and valleys. So
can you say that word again with the L?
Linear.
Yeah.
Linear.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I heard like linear, like veneers, linear, whatever.
Dude, it can be said both ways. What are you doing?
I don't know. It just sounded weird to me. I wanted to double check.
What is this?
I just wanted to double check what was going on.
I am not under question. The way I pronounce words is not under question. We are discussing the New York Knicks right now.
Very fair. So the only problem too with part of this discussion is who are the New York Knicks, right? So this is
I don't know.
This is an important question for us to talk about because all these debates that we can have until we're blue in the face about Coach Tibbs, about individual possessions from Julius Randle, about I'm just going to start adding stuff that not even relevant to tonight's game or last night's game, like Brunson overall as a number one type guy or a number two type guy, RJ Barrett's future in this league, like the whole nine, right? All these questions are real questions. What are the New York Knicks? I know for a fact, Alec, that they are not a top 5 team in the East.
Sure.
Right? Their
Sure.
peak in this season is 6. That's their peak. And the Heat have been playing better. If you're looking on YouTube, I got the standings up right now. Like their peak is the 6th seed. So
I don't know. I think they could be better than the Cavs.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can. I think maybe if the Cavs are banged up and they're missing, Mitchell or Garland or Allen for, 2 months, then yes, we can definitely knock off some points in the standings there.
I'm not saying they for sure are, but I think there is a world where they are a 5 seed.
Sure. But that's the further question. Is there even another coach out there who can push them over to a 5-4 seed range? I don't think there is right now. So that's part of the thing as well. And I'm slow to just say, why are we firing Tibbs? Because who are we making the next head coach? Do we have somebody in the realm of somebody like a Jacques Vaughn?
Rick Brunson, baby.
Just make Brunson's dad the head coach, right? Like possibly, right? Like I don't know. So I don't know what the next option is. But we actually do, Alec. We do have a special guest here as well. We have a caller. We got a guy who's calling in. It's Brus from Brooklyn. And Brus from Brooklyn, welcome to the show. And I think you might have some thoughts about this game because I know you were frustrated as well. But you do have to unmute yourself, though.
Yeah, first rule of podcasting, right? So what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. Had some thoughts. Alec, been a minute. How are you doing? I don't know if you're frozen, but what is up?
Might be frozen. It's all good, though, Brus. What's up, Brus? How we doing?
Same old stuff. Frustration. Watching. I was saying what's up, Alec, because I haven't talked to you in a while.
Dude?
Just main frustration. For the most part, I think a lot of bad decisions are being made by players who we expect to be the guy. Julius Randle has been the guy for sure, but I think it's going back to like a Nick cornerstone of having that one guy continue to play one-on-one ball. And all these guys that you guys had mentioned, I guess, in the past like 5-10 minutes, guys who are getting time, playing well, like Quentin Grimes, things like that. It doesn't allow them, and more importantly, players like RJ, to fully be what he needs to be. And I don't even think it matters from a coaching perspective. I think the game plan around, spreading the love is ideal.
And I think that's a good point too, because RJ is a guy who really needs a rhythm, right? He really needs to kind of find that rhythm, and he has those games where it looks like he has no touch. Tonight was one of those games. He was 3 of 12 or something like that for the game, and he takes these layups or these floaters, and you're like, does this guy suck? You're like, wait, what? Can he shoot? Like, can he score? Like, and that's why Twitter is such a dangerous place for RJ Barrett fans or haters alike, because then he has a game where he's 9 of 13 for 28 points, and you're like, this guy's great. The jumper looks clean. He's attacking the rim, and then again the next day after that, he looks like he can't make a layup. So it's a really strange thing. He needs rhythm. And when Julius goes ISO ball, ISO Julius, it's frustrating, and Alec, maybe that's to your point. Tibbs has to put a kibosh on that and say, hey, Julius, you might be 1, but Brunson is our 1A or 1B, however we want to call you guys. Like, we need to work together. You need to not just set a fake screen to go stand in the high post at the elbow and call for the ball. Like, how about a screen and roll? All the other guys who play your position well and are stars in this league don't have a one-trick pony. Like, they are true pick and roll threats. They're pick and pop threats, not just fake ass bullshit screen. Give me the ball at the elbow and I'll go to work. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, is that like what you're seeing too? I don't know, because we started this conversation with you being mad at Tibbs, and me and Brus seem to have a little more frustration with Julius Randle.
I'm not going to blame him because he's been 3 months. He's been on fire. I think you have a team of 3 guys that any night can put up 20 points, and any night can put up 20 points together, right? You can have Randall, Brunson, and RJ all put up 20 points at the same time. And then you have really good role players in Grimes and Quickly. I don't think that Randall just decides that he's going to go ISO. I don't think that that's it. I think, and I've heard Tibbs talk about this in post games before. It's like he wants to play it safe. If you look at how they run the offense in the last 2 minutes or so, every game that's a tight game, which is most games, they dribble it out till 8 seconds, they set a screen, and they drive in or they take a three. Like, that's what they do every game. So you can't blame that on Randle going ISO, because you know that it's Tibbs saying to do that because he's trying to play conservative so that, hey, worst case scenario, we go to overtime, right? They're never playing it to win the game. And like, you look at what like Brian Dable does with the Giants, right? How he set a precedent early on in the season. He's like, I'm going to put them in situations to win the game. And you can see how they feed off of that, right? They fed off that the entire season and overachieved the entire season. But if you play it safe, if you play prevent defense, you're preventing yourself from winning, right? That's just kind of how it goes. And that's why their leads, like they get a 20-point lead and with 3 minutes left, and all of a sudden it's a tie game, right? It's because you do exactly that. You got to play aggressive. You got to play to your skills. You got to play to your guys. And you got to play the hot hand, which has always been Tibbs' criticism in his entire career. One of the many criticisms that he has is he's like, I have a game plan. I'm going with that game plan, and I'm not going to do it. And like, to his credit, he's been very fluid this season, right? He's changed the lineup. He's got his 8 or 9 or 9-man rotation or whatever it is. But like, that's one thing that's got to change. You have to go to Brunson in that moment. You cannot go to Randle in that, because we all know the end game, like the end of that movie, right? We've seen that movie a million times. We know the ending. You need to give it to Brunson. He's like number one in clutch shots in the entire league. And then you also have clutch guys in Quickly, Grimes, and Barrett too. Like we're crapping on Barrett, but Barrett's made a lot of big 3-pointers, in his career. So Randle's really good. The one thing he is not good at, and until he gets better at it, like is crunch time. And you got to give it to somebody else in that moment. You finally have Brunson so that Randle doesn't have to be that guy. I don't care if you're like, you think it's too obvious that you go to Brunson or whatever it is. You try it out. Worst case scenario, he gets a shot up and it misses. The worst case scenario with Randle is nothing happens and he doesn't get a shot off, and that's what happens more often than not. So,
and I'd almost rather Brunson take over the possession, and when he gets doubled or he runs into a brick wall and can't get something up,
kick it
then
out.
you find Randle with 5 seconds left and he can attack the rim or take a crappy jumper, which he might make, right? Like, that is what a lot of teams end up doing late in games. If you have 2 guys, one of them goes, if he can't get it, you bail yourself out to your teammate and he gets at least an okay look up. And it, it kind of sounds like Tibbs needs to save him from himself a little bit. But Brunson is that guy. And the fact of the matter is, we played LeBron James in this game. He's made a career off of making the right decisions late in games and not always forcing shots. And that's the type of thing that the Knicks probably need here, because they are more of a strength in numbers team than a team that is a strength in a top 1 or 2, even though having the 1 and 2 has helped them a lot this year. When they're kicking, when they're actually playing really well, the ball's moving and many people are hitting shots. So why would you not try to implement that late in games as well?
Yeah. And again, I just keep pointing back to the fact we were shooting 20% from 3, and we took a lot of threes this game, if I'm not mistaken. It's not like we didn't take any. So you need to just amend the offense to that, right? You need to drive to the hoop, and they just stopped doing that in the end of the game. They just completely stopped doing that. They stopped driving to the hoop. They just were settling for long jumpers, long 2s, long 3s, and that's not going to win you games, and it's not going to extend your lead when you haven't been hitting them all night.
And I think that's been a theme throughout the entire season. I mean, there was definitely a good chunk of Knicks games that like I missed just like due to work and stuff. But like, I think a big portion of those tightly like competitive games, a lot of bad decisions, late turnovers, having the game within like 6, points, a couple possessions, and then, just turning the ball over and then not, basically not getting buckets. I said this the other day because I went to the Nets and Knicks game at Barclays, but sometimes we just need a guy that gets buckets at the end of the game and just, keeps it close. For example, like Kyrie did that when, I was watching, the game at Barclays. Like, he was just getting buckets no matter the situation. If they were down by however many points, you take those points. Jalen Brunson did that tonight. Every chance he got to either, get fouled or whatever the case is. But I feel like the Knicks don't do that enough at all. And like to your point, Alec, like they're basically ripping threes to close the margin when there's 3 to 4 minutes left. In the meantime, they actually need to, go get some buckets and close the margin that way.
And just to build off that, Bruce, like you're saying, like the Nets would never, in that situation, the Nets would never have anybody besides Kyrie taking that shot, right? Because he was the hot hand, he couldn't miss the entire game. Every team does that. Every team does that except for the Knicks.
Yeah.
Like Brunson should have been the Kyrie of that game. He may not have hit it. He's no Kyrie, right? But in that moment, he's the best thing we got, and you have to give it to that guy.
Yeah. And again, going along with the theme of bad decision making, I mean, I think when you're a person who has the ball that much, like I'm not, saying I'm an expert at anything. This is just my take. But I think when you're a guy like Julius Randle who has the ball that much, of course your instinctive nature is to score and like be like that's your shit. Like you're gonna be a scorer. Sorry if I can't cuss. But I think a lot of the pressure behind that is causing him to make these late game bad decisions.
Yeah, 100%.
If it's not a miss, even if it's like a one-on-one opportunity that he shouldn't take, whatever the case may be, I think like that additional pressure is just sort of burying him at crucial times in which Knicks have been this entire season in terms of late games.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? Like it's maybe not it's not a lack of effort on the offensive end from Julius Randle, right? Like he is full sending at points here. It's just not the type of full send that I think we want. And actually live as we're talking here, I just see a tweet from Tom Thibodeau's post-game press conference. This is Tibbs on the last play of regulation. He says, quote, "There's 3 options on that play." So they have to read the defense. LeBron was on Jalen and Davis was on Julius. Depending on what they're doing, they can go either way. So their play has option. That's why the play is set up that way. So basically he's saying what we're saying, right? Like he puts it in the hands of his 2 stars, and those 2 stars weren't able to make the right decision. Or maybe you can argue that they made the right decision in that regard, and that the play didn't just work out. But Tibbs is making it clear. He's making a play. He's drawing something up that either Brunson gets it or Randle gets it, because they are the 2 all-star caliber players on this team who should be taking the game into their own hands at that point in time. But it seems like we're not pushing the right buttons, and maybe that's more of a player problem than a coach problem.
Yeah, yes and no, though, because like again, my whole argument comes back to the point that Julius Randle shouldn't have had the ball in that situation, right? So
Right.
you have other people that are more apt to make that play.
You're saying Brunson should be like, "Hey, yo, right? Come on."
Exactly.
Give it to I got 37 right now. Like
exactly. And Brunson is a really good facilitator. One thing that Randle has struggled with this entire year is passing out of the double team. He just can't do it, right? So as soon as it gets into his hands and he gets trapped, there's like a 90% chance that he's going to get trapped, and he's either going to turn the ball over, or he's going to get a jump ball, or he's not going to, get the shot off. Well, those are the 3 options, right? Those are the options of that play. So I don't know. I just think you give it a Brunson. Brunson, I trust to make the right read. And worst case scenario is he bricks it, or he just gets blocked or something like that, where he gets the shot off. That's the most important thing of that play.
Yeah, and how demoralizing to just not even get a shot off. I mean, that's terrible. If we go big picture here for a second, though, because in the season that we have here approaching the All-Star break, you don't want to go too hard on one result because it was a close game. They did go to overtime. One play here, one play there, and they win in regulation. Sure, right? We can say that till we're blue in the face, but big picture on this team, my questions almost don't exist, because I don't know which way they're supposed to go right now. In my estimation, there's 3 ways. They can kind of stand pat and be the 6, 7, 8 seed that they are right now, or they can go for marginal improvements to try to lock in being that 6th best team in the Eastern Conference and not be a play-in team, or they can go full send and try to, move a pick and move a player and move some contracts to get a difference maker. Like OG Anunoby has been the guy that's talked about the most. But I don't know what their best bet is, because there doesn't seem to be someone out there that can put them over a big time hump. But as fans, Brus from Brooklyn, I want to go to you first. What is I like calling you Brus from Brooklyn, by the way.
Yeah,
but what is your take as a fan who obviously wants to see them win every time you watch them, and understanding what the future holds for them? Do you want to see them full send, even if it kind of hurts their future mobility, or do you want to see them kind of just take what they got and try to improve with what they have?
I think the pivot that I would like to see is like that shift in momentum for RJ Barrett. I mean, I can't say enough about this guy. Like, I think that he needs to really start being the guy. Like there's no way to put it, or else he'll be in a position where he's, 3rd option his whole career and doesn't really get to sort of unleash that star power. So I don't know anything about draft picks and trades like rumors at the moment, or like what we'd have to give up for those potential picks. But I think, like you said, we're sort of in the middle of the pack here. A lot of games left. I think with the way that we're currently going, we're going to go, split 500 and, not be like winning, have a winning percentage over the, next portion of the season. But I think that, give it a shot, change it up for a bit and not just like 2 or 3 games. Give this like a proper go of distributing the ball. And another thing I want to just add to that is that like the Knicks aren't doing a horrible job of scoring and distributing this year. Like there's 3 guys that are averaging above, 22 points and, some good averages after that. I just think that the shift needs to start favoring these younger, more developmental players. And, obviously if we're using first round draft picks, like I feel like all New York teams suck with first round draft picks, but like, we want someone to pan out. And same with Mitch, who, who's had injuries recently and he was a second round pick, but like, that's just my opinion. I think there's a ton of good young talent on the roster. Some great facilitators, like you said, Jalen Brunson. I think he's done a remarkable job since he's started playing with the Knicks. But yeah, that's just my swing of things. I don't think Randle's a bum. Nothing bad to say. I just think that the game plan needs to shift towards these players who need to develop in actual prime time and become stars now. And not in 8 years for 1 year, if that makes sense.
Al, what do you have to add to that? Where do you want to see them go? In the paths that exist, where do you like to see them go?
So my mind goes back to what you said before about like, what are the Knicks? And I think that's really hard to pin down right now because they win 8 games, they lose 5 games, they win 4, they lose 2, whatever. They're super streaky, right? And I think it's important to be a playoff team. Right? Like more so than a play-in team, like legit, not like made the playoffs after the play-in tournament, not like a 7 seed who gets it. Or I think it's important to be one of the top 6 teams, and I think that creates your identity. And they're always looking for that star, right? But I think it's important because winning culture begets good players, right? Like that's how it operates in this league. The Nets were garbage until they weren't, and then they got incrementally better, and then everyone wanted to go there as a destination. I think they need to make a trade, and on top of that, they can't hold on to these draft picks forever. They're gonna go into the draft with 14 picks in a draft and not be able to sign them. Like they have to move them at some point. What I've been seeing for like OG Anunoby is 3 first-round picks for the Knicks. No, the Knicks would never be giving 3 unprotected first-round picks from the Knicks or something like that. What you'll probably see is this year or next year's Knick first-round pick and then 2 of the protected players. I don't know if that's what the Raptors want, right? That's just what the reports have been out that the Knicks are offering 3. And I think that's a good trade because, like, again, you might say, hey, I can get an OG Anunoby in the draft. And you might then say, oh, for sure, of course, yeah, you would say that. But like the Knicks have done really well at drafting late in the draft for the past couple of years, really well. They got Quentin Grimes, they got quickly, they got Mitch in the second round, they got Jericho Sims, which he's not a star, but for the value they got at the second round for him, that's like important. So yeah, you might get an OG Anunoby, but like at a certain point, you have to transfer those to a player. If they make that trade, let's say it's exactly that. Let's say it's 1 unprotected, 2 protected, and then you have to throw in a filler, whether that's Obi or Fournier or whatever matches salaries or something like that. You still have enough, like plenty to go get another star when they need it. And now you become a destination more so, and they're showing that they're a winning culture, right? Over multiple years, they are showing that they're putting good players there incrementally, and then also it just fills a huge need that we have right now because our bench sucks. Besides quickly, that's a product of just not playing 3 players that could play on this team, and Fournier, Reddish, and Rose, of course. But you have to make those moves too. You can't go past this deadline with 3 dead players on your bench that are getting DNPs every night, and those 3, and then also Obi, who you need to upgrade, and he'll flourish somewhere else probably, but you need to upgrade there. The one question I have with an OG Anunoby is, what does that mean for the current rotation? Because I don't really want to see Quentin Grimes on the bench, but I also don't want to see OG Anunoby on the bench, right? Like
you can't see OG Anunoby on the bench. He's too good.
Exactly. They're both starters, and and I really don't want to see RJ on the bench either. So it's like the fit is there. in terms of skill and need for the team and everything like that. And he instantly makes the team better. He doesn't make them contenders, but he definitely makes them better depending on what you give up. But I just don't see how it fits. So if you make a trade for OG Anunoby, there's got to be an accompanying trade probably to move RJ, I would assume, or Quentin Grimes if you can get someone bigger. And I don't know that I want to give up on RJ.
Or Grimes for that matter. Yeah.
I definitely don't want to give up Grimes, but I mean, nobody's untradeable, right? Like if Luka goes on the market tomorrow and they're like, hey, we want Grimes
and Grimes and
exactly. there's always a price for it, but I don't see the fit with OG right now unless they make an accompanying move, and I don't really want that accompanying move. But something of that ilk is what I think is important to become that 6 seed, so that you become that team that is the 6 seed, right? If that makes sense.
And you nailed a bunch of the stuff that I wanted to bring up too, because that's the exact critical point of whatever trade the Knicks are going to make. How does it actually fit with their rotation? It's so easy to say, oh, you trade Fournier and Rose who have value to somebody else, but no value to us. Now we're better. Are we? Who's in and who's out of this rotation? And one of our podcast mates here on the Basketball Podcast Network from the Mavs Outsiders, Mike Bibbins, we did a little thing cross network where we're making trade offers to each other. And he offered a trade to me as the Knicks, the Knicks guy, and offered Tim Hardaway Jr. and Frank Ntilikina, which,
bring him back.
Pull at my heartstrings. I don't got to ask me twice. And Tim Hardaway Jr. and it was for Reddish and Rose. And I'm like, wow, what a good trade for the Knicks. He's saying as a Mavs guy that they'll be happy with that trade. He offered the trade. We'll take it. But then the question rises, if say someone like Tim Hardaway, who's an older version, not as defensive, a little more offensive than OG Anunoby, but would Tim Hardaway accept a bench role? Would he come to the Knicks and say, yeah, I'm going to be the 6th/7th man with Quickly and let Quentin Grimes start? So you almost need somebody who is undoubtedly better than Quentin Grimes in order to move Grimes to the bench. Realistically, is Tim Hardaway that guy? I don't know. I think Tim should take the bench role. He'll get more shots, run with the second unit, etc. Would he do that? I don't know. OG Anunoby's not doing that. We can say that straight up. He is too good in his prime and ascending for him to come to New York to go to the bench for a guy who's a second-year player who we love, who we know has great potential, who's very good right now. But OG Anunoby is better than Quentin Grimes at this point in time.
Not offensively.
He is. He averages way more points, and he's not as good of a 3-point shooter, but he's a better offensive scorer right now than Grimes. I believe,
but he wouldn't have that role on the Knicks like at all.
That's probably true. He'd probably go down a few points. He'd probably be relatively comparable to Grimes, but
yeah,
he's a more proven player. He's a more known commodity than Quentin Grimes right now. I don't think OG Anunoby's coming to the Knicks and saying, yeah, put me on the bench. Grimes can start. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So who is the guy that makes the team better, that makes sense for the starting lineup in the rotation?
Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder just didn't play with the Suns because he got benched.
But he's the player. He's the player we really need.
I think OG is better than Jay Crowder. I don't think Jay Crowder is that good, to be quite honest. I think
I would prefer a move on the margins. Like then you need to just make the bench better. You have to make the bench better. You might not need to give up any picks to make the bench better, right? Like right. You could just give up the Fourniers, the Roses, and the Redishes, and make the
get
bench
one more
better.
Guy who can play in the rotation.
You need to get Miles McBride back on the bench. Like he's doing a fine job. Like he's not making the team better. Like he needs to be a guy you bring in for defense.
He also doesn't really play the same position as Grimes and RJ and OG and Fournier. Like he's more of the backup point guard who kind of plays two a little bit. I don't know. It's all very fair to ask those questions because your point about the picks is very true as well. They have 3 picks that are close to first round picks if you count the Mavs, their own, and then the Pistons, which will be a top pick in the second round, basically a late first.
I think the Pistons won't convey. It'll just get kicked the next year, won't it? If it doesn't convey this year.
The second round pick?
Oh, I think you're talking about the first round. Okay.
Yeah, the Pistons second. So you're right, though, Alec. If they draft another Quentin Grimes next year with the 26th pick or whatever 22nd pick, whatever the Mavs pick is going to be, what does that mean? I think we're like good on the mid-tier players. We're set. Mm-hmm. We got those guys. We need to upgrade those positions, and OG might be that guy. OG might be an upgrade that hits some of the boxes they need to check. But overall, if you go and draft a guy who's like OG or you draft 2 guys that are equal to OG, they can't play. there's not enough minutes to go around. So they're stuck. They're in a really weird spot right now. And I don't know exactly where they're going to go. I do agree with you, though. There's going to be some sort of marginal move. I don't think it's going to be any of the hot names on the market, like the big names, and sadly right now in the NBA, the biggest names are OG Anunoby and Bojan Bogdanovic. So Bojan's not a fit for the Knicks.
Van Fleet, the whole Raptors team is on the market.
And Van Fleet, same concept. Like, is he going to come back up Jalen Brunson?
I think Gary Trent would be a nice option for us. I don't know if he would take it. I think he's the most likely to take a bench spot.
Bench spot guy. Come here, start ripping threes. I would love that. I don't know.
But I don't think Masai's going to want to lose. Masai's, he's not a loser of trades typically. No, so
he's not. He's definitely not. So I don't know. I mean, the Knicks are stuck right now, and I think that's pretty much all we have to say on tonight's show. So Bruce EP from Brooklyn, you have any last words on your Knicks thoughts or general thoughts?
No last words on mine. I think you boys had it covered. Gonna do some more digging into the free agency bit and see who we can get for August 2nd. So that's just about it for me.
Shout out to Bruce from Brooklyn. I need to get on Paul from Staten Island one of these days.
Paul from Hoboken.
Well, when he calls into the show, he's Paul from Staten Island, right? He's been watching the Giants since 1967, and that's why they're winning 24-17. Okay, so he might be Paul from Hoboken Monday through Friday, but once the nighttime hits and we're recording the podcast, Paulie from Staten Island. So, Alec, any last words for you on the Knicks?
Not on the Knicks, but go watch Last of Us. That's to you. That's to you, not the audience. Like, go so I can talk to you about it.
Today to tell me that, so I think I'm gonna have to do that and maybe check out the game too.
Might be the best show on TV right now, and that's tough to say. There's a lot of good shows out there.
I need to watch 2 and 3, and I've heard from before the season that episode 3 is just bonkers and hits very hard, and I'm excited for it. I don't know if I'm gonna sneak it in tonight because I won't be getting this podcast up until after midnight probably anyway, but we'll get there. We'll get there probably by end of week. By Sunday, I'll hopefully be ready to watch 4. No,
you're gonna get spoilies out there, man. You're not gonna make it that long.
Yeah, don't scroll TikTok.
Spoiler free since '93, bro. Come on. All right. Thank you. What'd you say, Bruce?
T-shirt alert.
That's right. Well, Bruce, thank you for your time. Alec, as always, thank you for your time. To the Knicks, I don't know, man. I don't know. My hands are up, and I'm saying to myself, what's next? Because I don't know. They'll play a team that they should lose to next week, and they'll beat them, and then they'll play a team they're supposed to beat at home, and they'll lose. And that's just been the Knicks season this year. And with the Heat coming on, the Hawks maybe kind of being a little bit better. They're still kind of not. Like, I just don't know what to expect from this Knicks team on a night in, night out basis. But hopefully we get some consistency in crunch time. That's all we can really ask for right now. And that consistency is a number of wins on the margins. Number of wins. Coming up before the break, we have the Heat, the Clippers, the Sixers. Wow. That's tough. Sixers twice and Brooklyn. Not going to be easy stretch coming up. So
at home or away?
We got home for Heat and Clippers, home for Philly, and then at Orlando, at Philly, home Utah, home Brooklyn, at Atlanta. Then it's the All-Star break.
Damn, we might not win a game for the rest of the year.
We're losing to Orlando. No matter what games we win around that, we're going to lose to Orlando.
100%. Yeah, and that's the thing. The Knicks could easily beat the Sixers and then lose to Orlando and then beat the Sixers again.
Yeah.
Like that's the Knicks. That's the Knicks season. They beat the Celtics in this crazy game and then lose.
They beat the Cavs. They beat the Celtics. Then they lose to the Raptors at home. It's how it works.
Such is life as a Knicks fan. But that's all we got. Subway Sports Talk for Alec Argento and Bruce from Brooklyn. I'm Pete Kennedy. Shout out Bruce Pelage, my boy. Appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, the whole 9, as well on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when we drop new videos. We'll talk to you soon. We don't have any football this weekend, so no picks, but we'll be back next week with some Super Bowl props, picks, parlays, and the whole 9. Eagles, Chiefs. Real quick before we go, Bruce, Eagles, Chiefs. What are we thinking?
I say Patty Moe cements himself and takes this other one home.
Alec?
Heart says Chiefs, head says Eagles.
Okay, there you go. I thought you'd say because of your O-lineman roots that you're pro Eagles because their O-line is just freaking dirt nasty.
Yeah, I mean, It's tough to love Eagles and just love Eagles fans to begin with. I'm not even a Giants fan, but yeah, I think I just a big Pat Mahomes guy, and he's done it all year with close to nothing, what looked like nothing in the beginning of the season. So yeah, I'm big time rooting for him.
There you go. I'll have my pick next week, but I think I'm going. My heart's saying Mahomes. I don't know what my head's saying yet. We'll figure it out. All right, Subway Sports Talk. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.